A good coach can change everything, combining physical activity, play, and collaboration. Sports build key skills like teamwork, compassion, and responsibility. These skills help kids thrive on the field, in the classroom, and in life. Sports are meant to provide kids with a space to be active and have time with their friends. However, the average child today spends less than 3 years playing a sport, quitting by age 11, most often because the sport just isn't fun anymore. It doesn't have to be this way. A good coach can play a transformational role in a child's experience. Research shows that physical activity, and sports in particular, can positively affect aspects of personal development among young people, such as self-esteem, goal setting, and leadership. While most coaches recognize the key role they play in promoting youth development and social and emotional skills, they often don't feel supported in doing so. Less than 1/3 of the country's 6 million coaches have been trained in youth development practices. This is a missed opportunity. It's time for big, bold action from across the youth sports sector. The first step? Train 1 million coaches in youth development techniques by 2025 through the Million Coaches Challenge. We envision a world in which all young athletes have access to coaches who are well-versed in youth development and skill-building techniques that help kids succeed on and off the field. We are the Million Coaches Challenge, 11 organizations committed to changing the conversation around what it means to be a good coach. Together, we can build a future where our kids know how to work together, celebrate success, manage failure, and are equipped with the skills they need to thrive. Sign up at www.millioncoaches.org to learn more.
Hello, happy National Coaches Day. 50 years ago, in 1972, President Nixon signed a proclamation declaring October 6th as the day to recognize coaches as teachers, friends, and counselors who help instill in their players important attitudes that will serve them all their lives. Today, we celebrate coaches nationwide and say thank you. I'm Sabrina McDonald, and I've been an athlete my entire life, and I know that good coaches can change lives, both on and off the field. As a coach myself, I absolutely love seeing a young athlete gain confidence or feel proud to have learned a new skill. Today, I'm a program associate with the Aspen Institute's Project Play, and I have the great pleasure to be your host for today's special event celebrating National Coaches Day. The event is part of the Million Coaches Challenge, which seeks to train more than 1 million coaches in positive youth development by 2025. The Susan Crown Exchange has invested in 11 organizations to develop trainings, spread the word, and coach and support coaches in new ways. This special event shares tips, strategies, and resources from these partner organizations: the Center for Healing and Justice Through Sport, Girls on the Run, Laureus Sport for Good Foundation, Life Sports at The Ohio State University in partnership with the Ohio High School Athletic Association, Little League International, U.S. Soccer Foundation, the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Foundation, USA Fencing, USA Triathlon, and USA Weightlifting, the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association in partnership with the University of Washington, Positive Coaching Alliance, and Aspen Institute's Project Play. To get started, we asked a few coaches to give us their perspective on how good coaching can make a difference for young people. Here are just a few of their responses.
I think sports and athletics are just a tool, a navigation tool for, or a vehicle for the greater good. At the end of the day, we want our student athletes to be better people and to be better humans in the world. We talk about all the time, hey, what is your legacy going to be here at Hilliard Darby? What are you going to leave behind? What are you going to leave going forward. And whether that's a student athlete, hey, here's what I've left behind. I've left toughness. I've left how you should be a good teammate and things like that. Or as a coach, hey, here's what I've instilled in my players. And hopefully 10, 15 years down the road, again, they're not going to remember what they got on a test. They're not going to remember whether you won or lost. But I can guarantee you, just as I have done in my personal experiences and those that have done athletics, you know those people that have made a commitment and made an impact in your life. And hopefully when students leave here, that 10, 15 years down the road, that they'll talk about that coach or they will talk about a teammate and remember those good times. And
so as far as positive youth development, part of my coaching strategy coming in originally as a coach was more just to get the wins and to teach them technique and things like that. And I would say in my first year coaching middle school, really got the glimpse of these girls need and are craving more than just volleyball skills. And so I would say about halfway through my first season, I started implementing some things like goal setting and just habit formation on and off the court, and saw some good results from that as far as buy-in from the girls as well as parents and the teachers that were surrounding them. So as that progressed over the past 5 years on and off coaching, I've tried to maintain consistency with the positive youth development, but also building off of goal setting and things like that as we go throughout the season. A lot of times it's very important to go out and already have kind of a list in mind of what you want to catch your players doing during practice or during a game or even off the court with their academics and things like that. So almost pre-setting like a coachable moment where you can build off of something positive they did and reinforce that to them and let them know, like, you noticed that you worked really hard in the classroom this semester and you brought your grade up, or I noticed that you were having a bad day, but you really picked it up during practice and put a lot of effort into that one play. I think catching them doing the little things has some huge payoff.
As a coach, we really work on that relational aspect, because without that, that's part of the integrity of it, is that for us to meet each child where they're at, they have to trust us. And through that trust and the mentoring and role modeling, basically, and them seeing that happen, with all of those things in place, they are then going to be able to kind of come out of their shell. They're going to be willing to step out of their comfort zones and try new things. Or when we say how great they are at something and they look at us like, really? I had no idea. But that relational foundation of getting their trust is going to help them try those new things and become all they're meant to be, basically.
As a coach now with Run for Fun, I get to combine running as well as social emotional learning through our programming. And that really is just being focused on, in any moment, like using teachable moments or being able to lay a foundation from the start of a whole coaching season, or even just the start of a day, that, we're focused on building up confidence and empowering our youth, and just taking any moment to learn about, empathy and, how you can be a good sport, or that, the competition of the things we're doing isn't everything.
Yeah, there are a couple of things that I think really resonate with kids. And again, just so many of them are simple, right? So allowing every kid to have some type of leadership opportunity. So even if that's just, at the beginning of practice, assigning a task. So you're in charge of picking up equipment. You're in charge of leading the cheers. They're just simple things that just giving every kid the opportunity to lead in some way, I think really helps from a social and emotional standpoint to help them understand that they have a role and a responsibility. And then the other piece of that is also taking feedback. So at the end of practice and games, asking kids, what did you like about today? What should we have done differently? And then not just listening to that feedback, but also incorporating that in future practices and games. So I wish people knew, if I could share anything with other coaches, I think what I'd ask them to remember is the impact they have on their players will be a lifelong impact. And in my work with Little League for the last 15, 16 years, every conversation I have with people as they remember their Little League experience almost always involves a coach. And fortunately, in most cases, it's a positive memory, but there have been situations where it's a negative memory. And so when I'm coaching players, I never want to be the reason they stop playing. So I try to be really intentional about those relationships. And I try to make sure that when they leave the season, that how I measure success is how many of them come back the next year. And so I don't think I can emphasize enough how big of an impact we have on players as their coaches. They will carry those memories and those lessons with them for the rest of their lives. And so I know it's hard sometimes, especially as a volunteer coach, when you've worked all day and you go to practice and sometimes you didn't have the best day, but always remembering that possibly that practice may be the best part of that kid's day, and to make sure it's a positive one.
Thank you to these coaches and the other we talked to in preparation of this event. As I said, there are more than 10 organizations in the Million Coaches Challenge cohort, and while we won't have time to hear from each of them, we asked them to share their top tips for coaches. Let's walk through a few of those now. Now I'm excited to hear from a panel of experts on what works in high quality coaching. We would love for you to engage. We're using a tool called Slido. You can either type in your questions in the Slido box next to the stream or use the QR code here to join in on your phone. And now let me hand it over to Ed Foster Simeon to introduce himself and the panel.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. Hi, everyone, and happy Coaches Day, National Coaches Day. My name is Ed Foster Simeon. I'm the president and CEO at the U.S. Soccer Foundation, and I'm excited to be here today. We have an incredible panel whom I will introduce in just a bit. But first, let me just try and set the stage a little bit for the conversation. You know, why do people coach? Why do people get involved in coaching? Often we simply want to teach the sport that we grew up with and that we enjoyed and got so much joy out of. Some of us coach because we seek to achieve on-field success and grow as a coach ourselves professionally to reach as highest levels of our abilities. The best coaches, though, we believe, are dedicated to creating a positive experience for young people while challenging, helping them to get out of their comfort zone and to improve their skill sets. This includes not only the technical and tactical skills that they need to perform in any given sport, but more importantly, those life skills needed to excel, like confidence, positive self image, resilience, perseverance, grit, leadership, teamwork, conflict resolution, communication. The list goes on and on. You get the idea. There's a growing understanding nationally that supportive training and resources for coaches on how to develop life skills in our students and players is incredibly important. Let's face the facts. Less than 1% of children playing any sport will become a paid professional athlete. So before we jump into the discussion, let's define what we mean by positive youth development in a sports context. So I looked around and did a little research, and I settled on in a nutshell kind of description. And the nutshell is this: programs that use a particular sport intentionally as a vehicle to facilitate learning and life skill development in youth. These programs recognize the key role a youth coach can play in influencing a child's development beyond the technical aspects of their given sport. They create opportunities for youth to connect to others, develop skills, and use those skills to contribute to their communities. This, in turn, increases a child's ability to succeed and thrive in life. It also makes playing a sport more fun because they're more engaged and they're more supported. At the U.S. Soccer Foundation, we've long believed in the power of sport to transform young lives. Using best practices refined from more than 25 years in this space, we train coaches to be mentors and to create lasting positive connection with youth. We also teach coaches how to build the social and emotional skills of young people in under-resourced communities through our Soccer for Success program and our coach mentor training. So with that, let me introduce our panelists. Today, we are going to be joined by Jason Sachs, President, Positive Coaching Alliance, Doug Ute, Executive Director, Ohio School Athletic Association, and Nicole Wright, Director, Council Development for the Southern Region for Girls on the Run International. So Nicole, let's get you started with you. Tell us about your coaching career. How did you know that a youth-centered approach was central to what you wanted to do?
Yeah, so I have coached with Girls on the Run since 2017, and I've coached recreational youth basketball as well. And coaching truly brings me so much joy. Supporting youth and learning new skills, building confidence, and having fun is really what it's all about. I began working with Girls on the Run in 2016 at my local council, facilitating training and supporting coaches in their coaching experience. And in my current role with Girls on the Run International, I also support the training of council staff and volunteers across the Girls on the Run network to facilitate our national coach training in their communities. So I entered into coaching with a youth-centered approach as my career has been in program management with positive youth development organizations. I've seen the positive impacts of creating a safe space that is driven by celebrating youth strengths, an environment that allows them to feel comfortable trying and practicing new things. So as a coach, first and foremost, before thinking about teaching new athletic or sports skills, my primary goal is to focus on building relationships, providing a positive, inclusive environment for the team, and creating a mastery climate. This past spring season, I was running a lap with one of the girls on my team, and she shared how she was initially nervous to try Girls on the Run because she doesn't see herself as athletic and is self-conscious in PE class. But she said at Girls on the Run practice, she felt safe to push herself and to try her best because she knows that her best is enough. So to see her learn to embrace her strength built so much confidence within her to stretch herself and strive towards her goals. And a youth centered approach provided that opportunity for her to see what's possible.
Really fascinating, Nicole. So did your approach to coaching come naturally, or did someone have to show you how to be this kind of coach?
That's a good question. I think that my approach came naturally in some ways, but coach training, really provides you the tools to be able to jump in and feel prepared and confident. So I think having that coach training element to teach coaches those skills is critical.
Yeah, fantastic. So Doug, I want to come over to you in Ohio. You work with a lot of coaches at the Ohio High School Athletic Association. Tell us about the journey coaches in Ohio take when they realize that coaching is more than just X's and O's.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Ed, and thanks for having me today. And I'd like to say happy National Coaches Day also to everybody, and value. My background is, as I started 37 years in public education, a teacher, coach, AD coach, high school principal, and 20 years superintendent. I've kind of seen the evolution of the social emotional piece that we started to realize, not just in sport or not just in education from 7:30 to 3, but from 3 to 8 o'clock also, the impact that can have. And I couldn't have said it better than the volleyball coach from Ashland earlier on the show when she talked about, because I do feel this way, young coaches, when they come out of college and they're 22, 23 years of age, just want to win. And because they feel that's what they're getting evaluated by. And as coaches mature, I think they realize the value of teaching life skills with their athletes. And those coaches tend to win because they're taking care of those things, the needs of their student athletes and that. And so, Ohio's seen, where we put a lot of emphasis on professional development in our schools. And I think we're just realizing the last few years that, we're getting that professional development on social and emotional aspects of our kids from 7:30 to 3. And then you turn around and look at the value of the 3 o'clock to 8 o'clock, or beyond that, the weekend value of staying connected with your students and your athletes. So we started to realize we need to train these coaches in the social and emotional, because in Ohio, nearly 70% of our coaches don't teach in our schools. Mm-hmm. And so they're not getting that training earlier in the day. And so, I think, our initiative with Life Sports, which is part of the Ohio State University and part of the social work department there, with some very brilliant people led by Don Anderson Butcher, that working with our 818 member schools here in Ohio to provide that education out through there has been very important, a piece of what we're doing. And we know, Ed, we know so much about, the life after 3 o'clock and how that impacts graduation rates and mm-hmm. how kids feel about themselves. And to do that, our coaches have to be in tune with where these kids live. They need to know about their life. They need to know about their families, those type of things, and how to deal with that and how to create positive environments, just like the coach just mentioned on there about creating that positive. It might be their best experience during the day. And Ed, we've known for a long time in education that, we need to feed our kids a good meal at lunch because it's the best meal they get all day. Mm-hmm. And we need to think about that. We need to provide that positive environment from 7:30 to 8 o'clock, because so many of these kids come from environments that aren't positive and good role models and how to model behavior, those type of things. And so mm-hmm. I really feel like we're pretty much kickstarted, and this movement is really moving with our coaches here in Ohio, because nearly 88% of them feel they need training in this area. And it's not about X's and O's. They don't need training on that stuff. They need training on how to deal with the angst that these kids are going through.
Doug, let me just follow up on that, because what you're describing is really like a culture shift, basically, of changing the culture of high school sports and how coaches come to the table and what the deliverables really are for them. How difficult is that? What are the challenges that you've encountered in trying to move this forward, because it's not easy to change culture.
It's not easy to change culture, but it's the number one thing that teachers and coaches ask for now, is the training and how do I deal with these type of things. And so you're not fighting a group of people who don't want this type of training. They're thirsty, they're hungry for it, because they've seen the need for it. And again, I was one of those young coaches I described. It was all about winning. And I wish I could go back in that 22-year-old guy when I came out of college and started coaching and say, that will come, but it's not about that. It's about helping somebody. I mean, I'm here and my path through life, I recognize is my mother, my grandparents, and every teacher and coach I was around that created a positive environment for me. That I did not know that when I was 17 years of age. So it's not difficult, Ed, in my opinion, because people are thirsty and hungry for it.
That's fantastic. So I'm going to swing over to Jason. And I think it's a natural segue to talk about training, because your organization, like the U.S. Soccer Foundation and Girls on the Run, creates trainings for coaches. Can you share about how your training programs infuse a positive youth development in everything that you're doing?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Ed. And it's great to be joined with Nicole and Doug here. And I mean, what PCA has always been about for the last 24 years is trying to provide tangible tools and resources and trainings for not just coaches, but really anyone that's involved in the youth or high school sports ecosystem. So organizational leaders, parents, athletes themselves, and of course, coaches. And I think what, we joke about sometimes the fact that positive youth development and social emotional learning, those are really big buzzwords over the last few years. And we feel like PCA, we've been doing SEL through sports before SEL was even something that people cared about, right? And it was really what we consider ourselves as that translator of how can we translate social emotional learning to sports, to the sports experience. And so we want to be able to teach coaches so that they can then teach the athletes and the students and the kids that they're coaching just around, important life lessons that are going to stay with the kids long after their playing days are over. So what we really want to focus on is within this sports environment, which is fun, which is providing an active environment for kids, which they are usually looking forward to that part of the day. How can we not just focus on the skills and drills of that sport and not just focus on the wins and losses, but really focus on those lessons and things like how to bounce back from a mistake, how to be a better teammate, how to set your own goals and look at, and what are those goals made up of? Are they result-centered goals? Are they effort-based goals? And so can we provide these coaches with really tangible tools and resources so that when they walk out of a PCA workshop or they finish a PCA workshop online, they are going to be able to implement some of the things they learned right away in their next practice. And I think everybody, especially I think everybody on this call and watching this, would agree that teaching life lessons through sports is a good thing, but that's a really hard thing to do. So what we want to do is try to really equip the coaches with tangible tools and resources to be able to do that. And what PCA has tried to do over the years is continue to evolve as things change in the youth sports environment, as things change in our society. We need to be able to change as well and evolve. And we just we have a new coaching with empathy training, which is available online and also in person, because coming out of the last 2 years of, we've dealt with the pandemic, we've dealt with, so many other things throughout our country where we need kids back playing sports because we know the benefits of playing sports, but sports in general won't give all those benefits. Sports done right with a caring coach is where that's going to be, where those kids are going to learn those lessons. So we really need to invest in training coaches. And that's why we're thankful for the Susan Crown Exchange and this Million Coach Challenge initiative to really invest in the coaches, because so many kids are playing youth sports, and it really is this great opportunity to teach so many life lessons to them.
Really good points, Jason. And as you were speaking, I was thinking about this idea that people will generally say, "Oh, sports are good for you," right?
Right.
Well, it's actually really only going to be good for you if you have a good coach, right?
Exactly.
And a coach.
If we do it the right way,
if you're doing it the right way. because I think in the opening remarks as leading into this panel, one of the speakers talked about a bad coaching experience and the
For sure.
impact that can have on a young person for the rest of their life, right? So this idea of being trained, and in training, I thought that Doug hit on a very good point that some may have missed, but he talked about understanding the community and where the kids are coming from as part of being a good coach. That's the same philosophy that we take at the U.S. Soccer Foundation. This idea that you have to understand the context that the kid is coming to you in, and so that you can be the most effective coach in their life and in their situation, because it may be different than what you may be familiar with in other environments. Nicole, back to you. So how is Girls on the Run shifting your trainings and adding new strategies to promote youth development?
Yeah, great question. So positive youth development has always been at the heart of Girls on Run approach and Girls on Run coach training. Our evidence-based curriculum is designed to use running and other physical activities to empower girls of all abilities with life skills, such as standing up for others, managing emotions, and intentional decision making. So in 2016, we launched a national coach training across our network of 175 plus councils, with a goal to support new coaches as they prepare to set off on their Girls on Run journey. So during the training, coaches learn and enhance their ability to deliver the curriculum and build relationships with and between girls, provide that positive, inclusive environment, and create a mastery climate really focused on individual goal setting. Mm-hmm. The coach's ability to reflect on their background and experiences, and as you mentioned, your context is at the core of the Girls on Run training. So we are in the process of revising and updating our national coach training to ensure it's in line with current best practices and positive youth development, reflects the diversity of our Girls Run participants and coaches, and can also be sustainably delivered by our councils to ensure that all coaches are fully trained. And from our research, we know that it's our trained coaches and the evidence-based curriculum that leads to the impact. So preparing our coaches is essential to the mission.
Yeah. Nicole, can I just ask you to drill a little deeper? You said something I think that's important, and not everybody may be familiar with this evidence-based approach to the work. Why is that important? What is it that adds to what you're doing at Girls at the Run and what others are doing? I know we do similar at the U.S. Soccer Foundation.
Yeah, well, the evidence-based approach in our curriculum and our coach training that really standardizes the experience that girls are receiving across the network. So every girl is receiving the same lessons, and that with that, the impact is consistent across participation at different schools, at different community centers. So to ensure that girls are really growing and seeing their confidence build and gaining those skills that they can use outside of Girls on the Run is what makes the evidence-based approach so important.
Yeah. So in other words, you've taken time to see what works, right? To measure it and then to replicate that, if I'm understanding you correctly.
Yes, spot on.
Yeah. So, Jason, in terms of your training, how do you push that out across in terms of standardization, in terms of, the proof points that say if you do this, you actually will get these results that we're talking about?
Well, yeah, I think that's really important, right? We want to know exactly what what the outcomes we're looking for and what we're measuring. So we, with a lot of the partners, and we partner with schools and youth sports organizations. And so after coaches are going through our training, they're going through different surveys, and we're getting evaluation. And those questions are asking them, have they seen change in behavior with the way that they're coaching and with the way that their kids are then, interacting throughout the sports experience. And we want to be able to show that our training is making a difference. And I also think that we look at other factors of, we're partnered with close to 1,000 schools and youth sports organizations across the country. And, 65% of those schools and youth sports organizations come back every year. And so they're seeing the value in it. And then it goes back to that previous point of, as topics are evolving and as they're bringing in new coaches or they're keeping the same coaches, we want to be providing new content to them. So we're tapping into the best practices of the best coaches out there in college, professional, sports. And we're also looking at the sports psychology, educational psychology, social psychology, and really looking at those factors that might be working in the classroom or other aspects of education, and then translating them into the sports environment as well.
Oh, fantastic. So I've got a question that I would like each of you to take a turn at. And, Doug, we'll start with you, but the question basically is, what would you say is the most important concept or mindset that coaches need to have as they approach practice or a game? What is it that they need to, what is the most important, set of concepts or mindset they need to bring to the table when they're engaging?
Yeah. Well, and I think the first thing is what kind of, how are you going to foster a positive environment? And that starts with a coach. If I come in a bad mood and I'm inconsistent every day and the kids say, what kind of mood's coach in today? I'm failing as a coach. And so number one thing I want to do is, no matter, and I felt this way as a school superintendent and tried to share this with 800 people, that all of us, it doesn't matter what's going on in your life, when you put your foot on the pavement that day out of your car, you need to be positive. You have a positive mindset. And so when those kids walk into practice, what are they going to see? Are they going to see a bunch of coaches stand over? How am I going to greet those kids? I want to look each of them in the eye on my team every day, because I should know those kids, and I should be able to look everybody in the face and know what kind of day they're having. And so them to me. And so I always want to greet people with a smile. How you doing? How was your day? Talk to them a little bit, interact somewhat with them. And as they come in and start stretching, you walk around to the kids and talk to them about their day and find out what classes they like the most, or if they're struggling in a class, how'd that class go? Talk to them about their day. And sometimes with kids, I think you get, well, I've had a bad, well, hey, it's only 3:00. You still got time to turn that day around. That type of a positive mindset as practice goes through. And then certainly a lot of teaching from an X and O standpoint, but there's a lot of teaching other than that. And so, one thing that, when I look back at my coaching that I'm most proud of that I did is have a morning shoot around. And Ed, I tell you, it improved our free throws, it improved this. We come in at 6:30, school day would be at 7. But what I was really teaching those kids is how to get up and start your day. And they complained for 3 days, 4 days, at the beginning of the season. Then they're coming in when they walk into the door, smiling. They look forward to that. How you start your day before you go down at 7:30, your first period class. And I think that's a life skill you can teach people, to get up, attack the day with a positive mindset. And so it's all about that environment that we create as coaches. And it's not just the head coach, it starts with them. But I want the assistants and anybody else in our practice to always be positive, and positive reinforcement to kids, and not just a superstar, maybe somebody who's sits at the end of your bench and doesn't get in much. Find positive things to say to them, because a lot of times our superstars are ones who get opportunities in life to move forward, but it's the 12th man at the end of the bench that you can really help on there. And you're doing more for him in his life than he's scoring for you, type of thing, he or she. And so, again, it's just how you approach that. And no matter what's going on in the coach, how their day went, you should come in with a positive attitude.
Yeah. Nicole, how do you all look at it? What is the mindset that you would say, that you think that a coach has to bring to the encounter with players, with youth?
Well, I would say one of the most important concepts to me to be mindful of is celebrating every team member's individual growth. And when you're able to do that, you create a mastery climate for your team where overall your youth experience less anxiety. They're more likely to learn skills and try new skills. and are also more motivated to work towards their goals. So, one critical way to do this is really by reminding each member of the team how they grew or how they improved during practice. This will help them reflect on their effort and their skill building.
Jason, what's your take on that question?
Yeah, well, I want to talk about practice, and not the game, but practice, because I think practice is such a unique opportunity, right? And so when I think of the word mindset, the first thing that comes to my mind is growth mindset, and making sure that all coaches have this growth mindset, and trying to teach the kids about growth mindset, because so many kids might come into a practice saying that I can't do something, or I'm not able to do something, or that's just the way I am. But it's us as coaches and how we're interacting with them, is that like we need to teach them about a growth mindset, that if we focus on effort and we can focus on the things that they can control, then we can help move them along that process, and really focusing on the process instead of just looking at that outcome and the result. And at practice, we have this opportunity to really engage everyone. And depending on what level you are, obviously games might be a little different at the high school level or more competitive level. There might be opportunities where kids might not get in the game and they're not going to play. So practice is really this opportunity that if we come in as coaches with the right mindset and having that growth mindset, that we can focus on improvement with all of our athletes and all of the youth that are in our practices. And as Nicole said, like everybody, regardless of where they are, has the opportunity to get better. So making sure that we are, that we're building them up as they're doing that. And I think when we first get to practice, we want to make sure, and Doug mentioned this a little bit, that we're checking in with them and where they are and meeting them where they are. Like as a coach, we might come into a practice with saying, hey, here's our plan. And then I might realize that my team is not ready for that. So this is what we need to be able to do. And I need to be able to change a plan or come up with something new, because I need to meet our players where they are at that moment. So I think that it's really important for coaches as well to know where they are going into the practice. Many times coaches are, in the classroom or working another job, and they show up to practice. They need to make sure that they're in the right mindset as well. So I think that practice provides just an enormous opportunity for growth for every individual on the team if the coach has that right mindset.
That's fantastic. Really, really good insights from you all on this. I don't know if we have time for another question, but I'm going to try and squeeze one in. And that is, we often talk about coachable moments for youth. What about coachable moments for coaches, right? The learnings that coaches can get from one another and, learning from their experience. How do you all think about that, right? That, it's not just about the kids. The coaches are growing and learning too in this process, are they not?
Absolutely.
Nicole, you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. So, I agree 100%. As a coach myself, I find a lot of value connecting with other coaches, sharing and hearing lessons learned and new approaches is always helpful to continue your own growth and development as a coach. And in my work, training girls around coaches, often one of the most celebrated pieces of training that new coaches find helpful is the opportunity to practice facilitating a girls around lesson. And mentor coaches support new coaches during this facilitation practice, being able to provide those tips and tricks that they've learned as a coach. Right. So learning from mentor coaches and building camaraderie between new coaches during that training sets a really strong foundation of connection and support.
Yeah. Jason, Doug, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'll just say that, I completely agree. The best practice sharing is so important. I think one of the great things about when PCA partners with leagues and schools is often our workshops are in person and interactive. And so it provides those coaches an opportunity to go through something together. And those relationships are, they're not only learning from PCA, but they're learning from other coaches in the room. I think another thing that's really important, which is related just to these coachable moments and how to help other coaches, is how do we bring more coaches to the table, right? How do we get more people coaching? And especially like at all levels, how do we get more women coaching? How do we get more women coaching girls? I have a son and a daughter, and I would love to see more women coaching my daughter's team so that they have that woman coach, in their life. And we need that representation. So I think what we can do as current coaches is how do we bring more coaches into this space so that we are, regardless of what community we're coaching in or what level we're coaching in, there is that connection to the community, regardless of that economic or social status of the kids in that community. We have coaches that look like them and represent them. And so I think it's really important that we are out there bringing more coaches to the experience as well.
Yeah. Doug, you have the last word on this question.
Yeah, and I've got a lot of words on this, and I appreciate the opportunity, because I couldn't be more thankful to Susan Crown and the Susan Crown Exchange, the folks at Life Sports, Dawn and her group, partnering with our association to our member school coaches out there in Ohio, because what we're seeing with this coach-to-coach environment and best practice piece is this thing is really snowballing. And we've got a lot of coaches sharing some great things they're doing, such as, when we think about coaches, we think about school coaches a lot of times in my world, the 7 through 12 coaches. And I just heard yesterday of a coach on Monday nights holding an event for youth coaches, and he's a basketball coach in Newark, Ohio. And it's not for the basketball coach. It's soccer coaches. It's wrestling coaches, all youth coaches. And it's not one bit about X's and O's. You're bringing them in and feeding them pizza, and you're spending an hour with them talking about development of youth from a social and emotional aspect. And I think that is just knocking it out of the park, those type of things. And our coaches are sharing with each other right now the good things that they're doing. And it's just so fun to watch.
That's fantastic. And I see Sabrina is here.
Thank you all. I'd love to pivot to some audience Q&A. Doug, I'd love to pose this to you first, and then Ed. The audience is very interested in your thoughts on how to best mentor new coaches.
Sure. I think, the word mentor is huge. I think our athletic directors play a huge part of this right now. Because, as I mentioned before, 70% of our coaches are lay coaches, so they're not educationally trained sometimes. And I will tell you this: you don't have to have a teaching license to impact a child, and the life of a child. So certainly the mentoring piece, but I also think, Sabrina, on how to mentor people is what culture do you create? And we got to think beyond just the athletic department. It's school culture. And so how are we getting our superintendents and our principals and along with our ADs involved with our coaches? Because if it starts at the top with initiative from the superintendent, it's going to get followed in schools, and how we treat our kids and the expectation that we have on a school bus on how kids behave, the expectation on what we do at the games, the expectation of what we provide for our kids. And, my rule in a school with our coaches, I say, I don't care how many games you win. Our community does, but I don't care. I want you to give the kids a positive experience. Be there for them, learn about the community. One thing I think for young coaches that they see is put them on a school bus and take them around your community, because sometimes they don't grow up there. They're not from there. And again, as I mentioned earlier, show them where your kids live, show them the environments of that, show them the positive aspects of things outside of X and O's, such as, are you doing team meals at somebody's house or a business, or coaches that invite kids to their house and have that team meal, so that a child can see this is a functional family, and how we talk to each other and how we eat together and how we do some recreational things and how much we love you, because so many of our kids don't come from homes like that. And so I think that's what you can expose young coaches to and show them that it's not all about winning.
Yes. Yeah. So just to build on what Doug said, when we train our coach mentors, the primary thought is to put the child at the center of all that you're thinking about in the day. When I first started, I was drafted as a soccer coach when I didn't really know a lot about soccer or coaching youth. And, it was all about me, what I was going to do, what my plan was for the day, what I needed to accomplish with the kids, and shifting the thinking to what do the kids need here in this moment today, right now. They showed up, as was shared earlier. I think Jason shared that you have to understand where are they today, right? And how do I meet them where they are and help them to achieve what they need to achieve? This idea of being a mentor is more about helping the kids find their way to their potential, right? To help them find their way to their potential as opposed to the top down dictating of what they should be doing.
Well, thank you so much, Ed and Doug. Nicole and Jason, I'm going to pose this question to you. How can we encourage volunteer coaches to return and create consistency within programming?
Great question. Let's see. So I think a couple of things come to mind right away. One, of course, as we talked about a bunch today, is the importance of coach training. So to make sure that a coach is coming into their experience feeling prepared and comfortable really goes a long way. And that really just sets them up for success for their season. I think the other piece is the ongoing support. That first training is just the start of their development and their experience. So so it's really important for as the organization to be able to check in with their coaches, particularly in those first couple of weeks of the season. How's it going? Help them work out some kinks. But that consistent communication is key. And then, really continuing the coach's journey and their training experience. So, after they have completed a couple seasons, what does that next phase of training look like so they can continue to build on those skills? But really that preparedness and that ongoing support is critical to, ensure coaches are excited to come back and are ready to come back. And of course, showing appreciation whenever, wherever you can.
Yeah, Nicole just nailed that answer. And the only thing I would add there is that just make sure that we're setting up the right expectation for coaches. And so making sure that we are providing them a coach job description of what is expected in this role. And so they feel like they're empowered and they know, and then providing that feedback loop to them and doing a coach evaluation and talking to them and getting feedback from them of what was working, what wasn't working, where they need more support. And at least if you have that expectation set at the beginning of the year, then you can check back on that of hey, was this what is this what you feel like you signed up for? Were there other challenges you were facing? And making sure that there's that dialogue between organizational leaders and coaches so that by the time the end of the season comes, it's not like, oh, what do you mean there was this problem? So it's really important, as Nicole said, to make sure you're checking in on a regular basis on your coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, thank you to the audience for your thoughtful questions. And now to wrap up with our lovely panel, you have each shared insightful ideas and strategies. If you could offer one piece of quick advice for a coach to be more intentional about creating a youth-centered environment, what would you say? Ed, why don't we start with you?
I think involving the kids, building in opportunities for the youth to have some decision-making ability in what's happening in the engagement with them, to help shape the experience. What parts can they begin to lead or have a choice in? I think is really important for them to feel ownership of that experience and some agency in what is happening. Now, of course, the coach is the coach, but it's this balance of giving some space for leadership and for kids to engage and shape the experience in a way. A lot of kids quit because they're not having fun, right? And they can perhaps tell us sometimes what would be more engaging, what would be more fun, and being willing to ask and engage young people in that role, I think is incredibly important.
Jason?
Yeah, one thing I would challenge coaches to do is focus on effort-based goals and really focusing on effort in general, because effort-based things are things that kids can control, and we know that if they are feeling they're in this climate where they're in control, they're going to stick to the task longer, and they're going to work harder. So when you're setting goals for them, like if you are a basketball coach and you, instead of saying get 10 rebounds, focus on what they can control. They can control on boxing out, that is effort based. So thinking of different things where you're focusing on effort, you're celebrating effort, even if the result isn't what you wanted, the effort and that process is really going to move their improvement along.
Doug.
Yeah, a lot of things that Jason and Ed touched on, I think were very important, but I think you need to think beyond just the practice, just the 2-hour practice or the hour and a half practice you have, and what type of locker room do you have for the kids to go to and engage with each other before and after practice, and what kind of team activities do you do? So kids want to be part of something, and they want to be part of more than just that practice or more than that game. They want to be part of that team. And so really focus on what does that mean to you to have a team? Well, it certainly means more than just playing a game on Friday night and those type of things, so they can feel the need that somebody needs them and they're part of something. And so what do you do before and after practice or on off days on the weekend? Do you do team activities? You go sled riding together? Do you do things like that? And I think kids really enjoy that.
Nicole, why don't you wrap us up?
Yeah, so one piece of advice I'd offer to keep top of mind is to support each player on your team, to set those personal goals, focus on their individual growth. So this will help create that safe, positive environment where they can focus on their own improvement and their own effort, as opposed to comparing themselves to others. And when you see them make progress toward their goal, be sure to celebrate it.
Well, what great guidance. We asked our coaches on the ground for some advice too. Love to hear what they have to say.
It's great. The X's and O's. We're not going to hire someone who doesn't have the X's and O's. We are going to have somebody that has to deal with parents. You're going to have to deal with all of those headaches of being a head coach, the paperwork, making sure kids have physicals, all that things. But all of those things that you have to do, I would say at the end of the day, all these new coaches, it's worth it. Because even if you affect that one person, and again, 10 years down the road, hey, my athletic director, said, hey, I forgot to do this, or I forgot paperwork, or this and that, or I had an angry parent, or I didn't do this well. You can learn all of those things. But at the end of the day, if you can go be that person for a young child, I'm telling you, it's worth everything that you could imagine. And I think that's why coaches get into this. And hopefully coaches, when you get into this, you get into it for the right reasons. Again, it's not about you. It's not about the wins and losses. It's not about the fame or how much, it's about you. It's more about the kids.
Any advice I would give, I struggle giving advice sometimes because I know I do not know everything. And so I think that is kind of the advice that I would give coaches is continue to be humble and be willing to learn from those who have walked before you in this arena, because there's a reason they've been successful with what they're doing. And although the generations may have different things that they pull towards as far as what the kids are interested in and stuff, they are still kids who are wanting to be part of athletics. So kind of building off of what people have learned in the past is huge. And also finding some mentors to be able to support you in your role, and just to give you life advice even of how to balance things is a great thing to have.
But I think the advice that I would have for coaches is just to be intentional and be authentic and model that behavior, right? So if as coaches we want to see something particular from the players or from our team, it's important that we model that behavior. It's important that if we're telling them to act a certain way, we're acting a certain way. And even jumping in drills sometimes. So to jump in and help model a drill, help kind of show them what you're trying to get across, and always just kind of walking the walk, and showing our players that that we can be meaningful and intentional about the information that we're providing.
The advice I would have for coaches thinking about, building positive youth development and such, I would say, just like kind of thinking about the youth you're working with holistically. So not just thinking about, oh, we're here for soccer, we're here for running, we're here for, whatever sports or programs you're doing with the youth, but thinking about, how can I help this youth be a better person in their classroom, be a better person at home, be a better person even at your practice, at your, if you do competitions, at your games or at your meets. And yeah, I think, and just thinking about the language you're using, thinking about the space you're creating. Is it inclusive? Are you being inclusive of gender, inclusive of different body sizes, inclusive of, the whole, just everybody. And not being shy to talk about topics that aren't specifically the sport you're working with.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Ed, Jason, Nicole, Doug, for your insights and being live with us today. We have a few more tips from our partner organizations. Wow, there's so many incredible ideas in there. And on behalf of the Aspen Institute's Project Play, I invite you to use our resources, calls for coaches, and how to coach kids available on the Project Play website. I hope you'll keep following the Million Coaches Challenge. Sign up at www.millioncoaches.org. We'll continue to share practical tools and resources to support all coaches in their quest to make a difference for children and youth. Happy National Coaches Day, and thank you so much for joining us.